So this is the Luba auto mower. I picked this up on a Black Friday sale last December, I think. And had I known that Momotion was releasing a Luba 2, which has a few extra features like a vision camera on it, then I might have waited. But nonetheless, I heard good things about this mower last year, and I figured I'd give it a try on my property because there are certain parts of my property that I would like to automate mowing for that I currently do by hand. So as a background, for those who don't already know, I have a Husqvarna 435X that covers this part of the yard and the section that wraps around the house. I have a Husqvarna 315X that covers this elevated section of yard over there. But this gravel driveway here gets a lot of weeds in the summer. And I've tried uprooting the weeds, I've tried all kinds of treatments, and weeds are very persistent. So what I've resorted to is just using my push mower and just cutting the weeds every couple of weeks or so just to keep it low. But I figure if I can put an auto mower on that, that would just save me a bit of time. And the thing with gravel driveways is you don't want to put boundary wire around a gravel driveway because the wire will get all chewed up. So having something that doesn't require boundary wire, like the Luba, which uses an RTK antenna, is a perfect solution. I also have sections of grass that wrap around that part of the yard there. I'll show you that in a minute. And if I can have the Luba mow that as well, that will also save me a bit of time. I have a lot of these like disjointed, sections that need cutting, and so I effectively need a few different auto mowers for that. So I set this up this past weekend, a couple days ago, and I did 2 test runs with it. So first thing is, as far as the setup goes, I found myself looking more at Reddit than the actual Momotion manuals for tips and tricks on setup. So I think the documentation that Momotion has could be a bit better, but even still, it's not terribly difficult to set the mower up. You set up the base station, you set up the RTK antenna. In this case, I have it mounted on the pole here as an initial setup, and then you download the app, and then you have to Bluetooth pair your phone to the mower. That part was initially the most difficult thing for me because the phone that I'm holding right now is my old phone, and it already has Bluetooth connections to that mower and my cars. And I think that was conflicting with trying to get a Bluetooth connection to this, and it simply would not connect. So I had to use a different device that doesn't have any Bluetooth mapped to it to map to that mower as like a clean connection. So I got that sorted, and then I could start mapping out a zone, an area. So first thing I mapped out was this back driveway, okay? And I did that, and we have a car that we usually park right around there. I put a keep out zone there, and I ran this last night just to see how it would do because the weeds were starting to grow. And it did it fine for a while, and then it got to right around there somewhere, and then it said it had no channel to the charging station. Even though the charging station is right there, and the antenna's right there, for some reason, it wasn't seeing it. I'm not exactly sure why. It was later at night, so I don't know if there's like a time of day dependence for, how these RTK antennas communicate with the satellites and with the mower. But then again, earlier today, I mapped out a section toward the front of the yard, so I'll just walk right over. It goes around that section of the retaining wall there. It's just a thin strip of grass, and it goes to the front here by the street. So it's just like this band that goes up and down, okay, around that mailbox. And positioning wise, at least during the day, I had no problem mapping out this boundary here. Okay, that worked fine. And I set the mower to mow it. It got mostly done. And then I think somewhere around here it got stuck. It had a positioning error because the antenna is way over there, and I guess there's some obstruction of trees or whatever that made it get stuck here. Even though when I mapped it out, I didn't have any real positioning problems except maybe over there briefly. So it did cut it. I didn't put a keep out zone around the mailbox, so it was kind of bumping its way around the post there. And one of the caps to the wheels kind of came unclipped. So I had to go pick that up. So, okay, need to work on the mapping there. Probably need to mount the antenna in a different location, and we'll get to that in a moment. So in both cases, the mower didn't complete the job, technically speaking, either on this back driveway or over there. I probably need to change the RTK antenna placement, so that's the next challenge. One thing I could do is mount it up there somewhere. I have the extension pole to push the antenna out and give it a bit more visibility to the sky. I have read about people mounting their antennas in the attic because even though it has to see through the roof, it's a much more open space and you can get more satellite connections if you mount this in the attic than if you mount it out here somewhere. So that's an option, but the problem is, depending on where you live, it might not be a good idea because I live in the US Northeast, the summers are hot and humid, the attic does get hot. And if that antenna gets hot, it may not function very well. I've read about cases where people mount their antennas in the attic. In some places it works fine where the climate's cooler. When it's really hot in the summer, it kind of stops working. So if I'm going to mount it in the attic, I would need something like a fan to run all the time just to keep it cool. If you mount it outside, there are issues that people have reported with these getting water filled in them because sometimes when they build these, they don't seal it completely. So you might want to get some shoe goo or something to seal the case to keep water out so that it doesn't have any water ingress. But here's the other thing. If you mount it outside, you have to bring it inside in the winter, which means when you bring it back outside for the next mowing season, that antenna might be in a slightly different location. And so the exact mapping of your yard will be shifted by any positional offset of that antenna. So you're going to have to remap the whole yard every mowing season if you mount this outside, most likely. Even if you mount it on a post, because when you mount it on a post, even if the post is in the same position, this can rotate one way or the other. So if it rotates a little bit this way or a little bit that way, the antenna is in a different position. And that will change, that will shift the map. So that is the downside of this setup, but the upside is that it is very accurate. I can go right up to the edge of the lawn and get a nice clean cut up to the edge. You still have to trim the lawn, but it's less trimming than what you would have to do with, say, something like the Husqvarna. Because this uses boundary wire, which takes a lot more time to set up and lay down. And on sections like this, you can see I have to trim along this edge here, even though the boundary wire is placed right about here, about 12 inches or so from the edge. And you could set up the mower to go past the boundary wire a little bit, but you still have to trim all the edges of the yard. I have to trim every mowing season. The other thing is the keep out zone definition for this is much more accurate than for this. The Husqvarna app that you use to define keep out zones defines it with GPS, and the GPS positioning is imperfect. It can be off by several feet, and that's a problem when you want to precisely define a keep out zone in a particular part of the yard, which is a problem I have around the corner over there. But if you want to do like broad scale keep out zones, like I don't want you to go in this whole section here, this will do just fine with that. But really sort of fine grain definitions of keep out zones, this is not good at all. This is much better at it. So that's an advantage. So far, still working through a couple of bugs. Having this antenna mounted under this grapevine here certainly doesn't help. It will interfere with the signals. But again, I'm experimenting here. I want to try different mounting locations for the antenna. I want to see what works well and what doesn't, especially for this property. Because in theory, if this antenna is in the right spot, I can do all the back driveway, that entire front strip, and this entire backyard all the way around to the other side. But with one antenna, that might be difficult. And if I can't get it to work in the attic with good signal integrity to the whole property, then I won't be able to do the whole yard. Another thing, by the way, I've noticed about people mounting their antennas in the roof is that they don't get very good signal integrity along the edge of the house. So that could be a problem, especially if you have aluminum siding or gutters or a chimney, because all those things have metal, and metal acts as a shield for electromagnetic radiation. Even chimneys. Chimneys are made of stone. Stone has metal in it. So we'll see how this goes. I just figured I'd give you guys an initial overview of the mower, And what else did I want to point out? The mower itself is a bit more aggressive than a Husqvarna because it's essentially designed to cut the grass in a single pass. So you have two blades, or two discs, each with 3 razor blades on it, and it spins faster than the Husqvarna mowers have. So what the Husqvarna mowers do is they run in a random path around the property, and then each time it makes a pass, it cuts the grass a little bit more until you get down to the level you want. This one, the blades spin much faster so that you can cut the grass down to the level you want in a single pass. This will make the Luba better on thick grass and thick weeds. Okay, it won't get caught up as much. So this does seem in that sense to be a bit more of a powerful mower. So that's good. Yeah, I think that's about all that I wanted to mention for now. We'll see how this goes for this mowing season. So thanks for watching.